So I finally found the only good coming-of-age film. Who knew you could make a film about someone growing up, gaining independence, finding themselves, and it doesn't just have to be about middle-class white people. Today we look at Santa Sangre, or Holy Blood. Santa Sangre is a 1989 horror film directed by avant-garde filmmaker Alejandro Jodorowsky. Now, Jodorowsky is a very eccentric man, and I don't think there's a better way of explaining this than by just telling you how the story of this film was written. We go back to 1980s Paris. Robert Leone, an Italian screenwriter, gets the idea for writing a horror movie based on a peculiar event that happened to him at a psychiatric hospital. A patient had told him that voices in their head were telling him to kill him. However, he wasn't going to do it because he loved him. The patient said this so earnestly that it gave Leone the idea to write a story about a sympathetic serial killer. One where every time he kills, you feel sorry for him. He explained this to Claudio Argento, who decided this idea would be best directed by Alejandro Jodorowsky. At this time, Jodorowsky had received critical acclaim for creating the Holy Mountain, only to then lose some of that praise for making Tusk. He was intrigued by the idea, but wanted to meet the man who wrote the story first. Jodorowsky showed up to the meeting completely dressed in purple. He asked Leone about when he wrote the story, which he replied with March 28th at around 2 in the morning. So, this is true by the way, Jodorowsky claims that he knew it was that day because he went to sleep early that night. Unfortunately, that's also when the Angel of Stories flew over Paris, saw that he was asleep, and instead gave the story to Leone. Jodorowsky claimed he stole the idea and nicknamed Leone a thief from then on. Sounds a little far-fetched, but that's only the beginning. One of Jodorowsky's major influences for the story came from a chance encounter he had with serial killer Goya Cardenas.
Est-ce que je peux prendre un café avec vous parce que j'admire vos fábulas pánicas? Je dis oui, qui vous êtes? Il dit je suis Goyo Cardenas. Goyo Cardenas. Mais he was a criminal. He killed 17. Il a tué 17 femmes. Comment? Oui, oui, c'est moi.
He was shocked to meet someone who had committed such atrocities go on to lead a normal life afterwards. Cardenas explained that he really was crazy, but he was rehabilitated and had moved past that era of his life. The idea of someone so demented finally finding peace within themselves would become the foundation of this movie. And what a strange movie it became. The film opens up in a mental asylum where we meet our main character, Phoenix. He's perched on a tree like an eagle and even has one tattooed on his chest. In fact, he's even given raw fish to eat instead of regular food. There's quite a lot of eagle symbolism here, but we'll get into that later. For now, it's just a really intriguing opening to get audiences invested. Interesting note, Phoenix here is actually played by Jodorowsky's son, Axel, with the younger version of him being played by his youngest son, Adan. As you'll come to see, it's a very wholesome family bonding film.
Y entonces empezó la película y nunca tuvimos una relación de padre a hijo durante toda la película.
You have to be good in this movie because it's a question of death and life, all right, for me. If you don't act well, the movie is gonna be a really shitty movie because of you, so you have to be a good actor.
The opening continues with aerial shots taken from the perspective of an eagle as we close in on the Circo del Gringo, the setting for the majority of the first act. It's a setting that Jodorowsky should be familiar with since he himself was a clown. I'm not saying that as an insult, I mean he genuinely was a clown. Despite being the owner of the circus, Phoenix's dad, Orgo, doesn't seem to give a shit about it. Orgo was played by Guy Stockwell, but the studio actually wanted Jack Nicholson along with Angelica Houston as Phoenix's mother. Jodorowsky was against the idea because he felt international stars would ruin the movie. I think they made the right choice. I feel the whole tone and vibe of the movie would have been completely different had they gotten them.
Et là, c'était un problème, mais heureusement, ils ont demandé un argent que Argento ne pouvait pas payer.
Also, Orgo being an angry drunk is pretty much how Guy Stockwell was on set. Hey, if the role fits. Phoenix finds comfort in his circus friends, one being Aladdin and the other being a deaf mute girl named Alma. Alma and Phoenix both bond over the fact that they're the only kids there, and from shared trauma they receive from both their parents. Alma's mother is referred to as the Tattoo Lady for obvious reasons. She's played by Thelma DeSue, who worked as a strip dancer prior to this movie. The tattoos were painted on her initially with paint that turned out to be too toxic for the human body. They had to rush her to the hospital before they had a real-life death on their set. The tattoos you see in the movie were painted on using ink from ballpoint pens and food coloring. The worst part is she couldn't shower this off for 7 weeks, or else they'd have to draw it all over again. For a first-time actor, that's commitment. The film quickly establishes that Orgo and Alma's mother seem to have some sort of affair going on. They both do this really evocative knife-throwing stunt, which will be important for the second act. Finally, we meet Phoenix's mother, Concha, as she tries to protect her church from being demolished. But don't worry, they have the power of music on their hands. Yeah, the church's setup is really fucked up. Even the Pope that comes to save it ends up condemning it. And how could you not? This church worships the dead body of a young girl who had her arms cut off. They also have a pool of her own holy blood in their church, but it's actually just paint. Concha is ready to go down with the ship, but a crying Phoenix stops her. They have nothing left to do but go back home. They walk down the street looking like the sickest gang you'll ever meet. Back at the circus, Phoenix sees two traumatizing events. A dying elephant, and his parents having sex. Simultaneously, he hears the painful screams of an elephant, and his mother orgasm. This is important, I swear. The elephant ends up dying, and they proceed to have a very respectful parade for it. Well, fuck. Phoenix is naturally upset by this, so his dad decides to make him a man by cutting an eagle tattoo into him, just like the one he has. So that's the importance of the eagle. It's a symbol of manhood that's implanted into him by his father. It's not only a physical scar, but a mental one. Now we get to the big day, the infamous circus act. Everything goes fine until Concha's act where she's raised by her hair. Being so high up, she sees her husband flirting with the tattoo woman, and naturally becomes upset. As a result, Concha does the rational thing and throws acid on him. Orgo retaliates by cutting her arms off. By her logic, I guess she's a holy figure now. This scene, and Orgo as a character really, is a commentary on how Americans try to impose their influence on other cultures. The name Circo del Gringo is actively aware that the man is an outsider. His costume is drenched in American symbolism. He views Mexican women as only objects of desire, and ends up killing one that even dares to confront him. Jodorowsky's disdain for the US probably comes from the fact that his films were always completely censored whenever they released there.
Les États-Unis ne m'a pas plu, parce que, évidemment, comme les cinéastes, les impresarios cherchent l'industrie, ils ont coupé les parties, quelle idée, ils ont coupé les parties violentes. Tic-tic, de petits coups.
During all this, Phoenix is trapped inside of a trailer. With both parents dead, there's no way out. To kick him while he's down, the tattoo lady, upon seeing Orgo's dead body, runs away with Alma. In the span of 5 minutes, Phoenix has effectively lost everything. Now we're back to the present where social workers are trying to help him make friends. They set up a movie night with the other boys, but that's not exactly what happens. This pimp ends up giving them some coke and taking them out for a night on the streets. They're able to get away with this because the chaperones are too busy fucking. By the way, that's another Jodorowsky son, Brontis. I'm going to take this chance to talk about how well this film uses its Mexican setting. Unlike his other films, the city was actually really excited to have Jodorowsky come work in Mexico. No longer were authorities trying to stop the production. In fact, a lot of citizens would help however they could. These people over here actually came from a local drag queen competition upon Jodorowsky's request. The less confined working environment is reflected in how lively these scenes are portrayed. It's funny considering it takes place in these dreary back alleys. It reminds me of the cult in the beginning of the movie. The song they play talks about the end of the world and how all hope is lost. The film shows two reactions to this idea. You can either immerse yourself in spiritual belief, or immerse yourself in debauchery. The pimp is played by yet another Jodorowsky son, Tio. Unfortunately, Tio would die in a freak accident shortly after the film's completion. It's one of the last documented memories Jodorowsky has of his late son. And you know, being a flamboyant dancing pimp is not a bad role to end on. Anyways, during all this, Phoenix has a chance encounter with someone who's done him dirty. This event is the catalyst for the rest of the story. We can assume that Phoenix was deeply traumatized by the events many years ago. Having no parental figure made him latch onto the only symbol of manhood his father gave him. He became a reclusive, emotionless eagle. However, upon seeing her, all these memories seemingly come back. We now see him express anger. The tattoo lady isn't the only figure from the past that appears. He starts hearing his own mother's voice, and in fact, he starts seeing his mother too. And that's how Act 1 ends. He's rejected his reclusive eagle state in favor of following his mother. Act 2 starts on a much darker note, reflective of how much darker the rest of the film will be. These three men are looking for some prostitutes and happen to go with the tattooed lady, who also offers a sleeping Alma to one of the men. Thankfully, Alma is able to escape before anything can happen to her. The film juxtaposes her frantic escape with the joyful energy of Mexican streets. She runs into this guy who takes off his ear. This scene wasn't actually in the original script. A crew member told Jodorowsky that they knew someone who could pull off their ear, to which he replied, "I want him here now."
Y mantiene una orella artificial. Allez, amène-les-moi, amène-les-moi. Alors les gars s'amènent et disent, sors ton oreille. Alors il a fait, génial.
Jodorowsky was definitely having fun putting anything he wanted on a whim into his film, but his crew, not so much. As for the meaning of this scene, beats me.
La scène que je mets dans le film, j'ai jamais compris pour qu'est-ce que ça veut dire cette scène. Chaque fois, je l'interprète d'une autre façon. Il y a une signification de cette scène non intellectuelle qui va direct à l'inconscient. Et ça a été fait avec mon inconscient. C'est comme ça.
She spends the night on top of a truck as the three men leave. However, a new threat makes its entrance. The lady thinks it's Alma coming, but it's actually Phoenix. We don't see him in the scene itself, but there's only one man who can inherit these knife-throwing skills. I can't show it here, but the final blow of the sequence I think was really well done. Alma walks back the next morning only to find her dead. Now we're back with Phoenix, who has donned his former magician's costume. Also, he meets up with Aladdin again. The boys are back in business. And I do mean that. Concha is back on stage with performative art, using Phoenix as her arms. Her rendition of the Adam and Eve story gets some applause, but what really gets the crowd going is this girl's strip dance. Hey, this can be art too. The girl actually offers to work with Phoenix, believing that his arms and her body could create a sensational act. Phoenix agreed with something already in mind, the knife-throwing act he saw his father do. Things are getting spicy until Concha appears. Not only does she cockblock him, but she also makes him kill her. It's best to mention this spoiler right now as we move forward, so if you're at all interested in watching this film, I highly encourage you to do so right now, and then come back later. So basically, Concha isn't really there. He's a manifestation of all the trauma Phoenix has endured. Remember when I said the simultaneous orgasm and pain cry was important? Well, this is why. At a young age, Phoenix associated the sound of pleasure with death. Combine that with being neglected by a drunk father and a crazy mother, Phoenix desperately seeks close companionship, but just doesn't know how to express it correctly. He tries to act like a man, but continues to be a child.
This girl has defiled you with her lust.
No, Mom, it's not true. It's only a game.
It's basically the plot of Psycho, but with a little more death and Spanish flair. The next morning, Phoenix has a nightmare that confirms to us that he still feels traumatized from the elephant's death. He even becomes it at one point. Phoenix and Concha share some dialogue together that reinforces the type of relationship they have.
Without me, You are nothing. No one sees you, and no one notices you.
Despite being a grown man, Phoenix still depends on his mother as if he were a child. In fact, it should be Concha that depends on Phoenix. She's the one with no goddamn arms. Instead, she criticizes everything he does. He can't seem to do anything right for her. This causes him to worship someone like the Invisible Man. He just wants to disappear forever. Alright, so here's my favorite scene from the movie. Phoenix is buying weird chemicals for his experiments to become the Invisible Man. The lady pretty much forces a date on him, which he accepts. As he leaves, he sees a parade float for the strongest female wrestler alive, Saint. This arouses him so much, he pops a fucking stiffy. Except the movie has to symbolize that in the most over-the-top way possible. That's right, they use a fucking snake as a symbol for his penis. Now that's what I call art. We're back briefly with Alma as she starts making progress on locating Phoenix. Phoenix goes to meet Saint and sees her fighting off 4 men. Now, the reason why Phoenix is so interested in this woman is because of her strength. He's trying to find someone who can replace his mother since a normal woman couldn't do this. He needs someone stronger. Also, yeah, this is just a dude wearing fake boobs, but I'm guessing there weren't that many 6-foot-tall muscular women wanting to act in Santa Sangre. Now we've reached the final act of the film, and boy is it packed. Phoenix puts on a magic show for Saint only for his mother to appear once again. He tells Saint to fight him off, which she does pretty well, but her muscles are no match for a fucking katana. Rest well, king. Or queen? Alma has finally found the Phoenix residence, and it's as fucked up as you can expect. Phoenix is putting Saint's body to rest when all of a sudden the whole cemetery comes to life, with multiple women asking, "Why did you kill me?" I can't show it here because they're all naked, but Phoenix does express immense regret. Phoenix has reached his lowest point, finally realizing the immense pain he's caused. And that's when he finds Alma. And I don't just mean the person. Alma's name directly translates to soul. I believe that's what Phoenix is finding here, his soul. The traumatic events of the past made him lose a part of himself. He'd grown up without guidance and desperately latched onto anything from the past to find meaning in his life. Once he comes to terms with the evilness of his mother and his trauma, he's finally able to accept himself. Before they can leave, Concha tries to stop them by making Phoenix kill her. Alma extends her arms to let him do it. Now it's up to Phoenix to choose his own path. They're interrupted by the store lady coming over for her date, only to see this gruesome scene. She runs out and immediately calls the police. Concha tries to kill her again. Side note here, the reason why these two walk in unison so well is because Concha's actress is grabbing this guy's balls.
Que de persona marche a la perfección. Alors je le dis Blanca, je regrette, te demandé ça, mais il va falloir que tu le fasses, sinon on ne pourra pas. Il va falloir que tu diriges, Cristóbal derrière toi. Mais comment? C'est simple, tu mets les mains derrière, tu les prends les couilles avec les mains et tu les diriges avec les testicules de mon fils dans tes mains. Et il va être parfait, il va te suivre partout.
That pained expression is not just for the movie. Phoenix finally puts an end to his suffering by stabbing her. Phoenix has finally come to understand and accept his past. He's finally able to feel the true emotions of it.
My mommy is dead.
The clown here might seem random, but I'd argue that if the mother represents trauma, and Alma represents the soul, then the clown probably represents his past. They were the ones that cheered him up and even rescued him. They were probably comfort characters for him as a child, but now Phoenix is all grown up. He has to let him go. Maybe it's a bit of a stretch, but that's half the fun of analyzing these sorts of films. By the way, the psycho comparisons continue with Phoenix having a doll version of his mother. It's not a corpse, but I'd say this is way creepier. The clowns are back to comfort him and guide him in throwing out his mother. Then they burn her and dance around her corpse. Embarrassing fact about me, I'm actually deathly afraid of clowns in real life, but film versions don't really affect me. I actually love these guys so much when they're on screen. I get a little sad when they leave for the last time. Hell, even Aladdin says goodbye. Turns out he wasn't real either. Makes you wonder what he symbolized. Oh. Interesting. Phoenix is finally free from the chains of his past. It should be a happy moment, but the two of them know the police are waiting outside. And you know what? Maybe this is a happy ending. Phoenix knows what's right and wrong now. He can take responsibility. He can take care of himself now. He now has full control of his life. And that was Santa Sangre. A little rough around the edges with prompts and that weird English voiceover. By the way, that's how this film was released. There's no Spanish version despite taking place and being shot in Mexico. Honestly, that's what makes this film so charming and unique. It manages to be unsettling yet silly. It's a horror movie with a message. It's a coming-of-age film, but interesting. More importantly, it's a film Jodorowsky is proud of. All of his sons got to act in it. It's a film directed by him for him. Didn't matter if it was successful or not. His art was made out of pure, plain passion.
Porque es que vos dis l'audience. Je me chie dans l'audience. Je ne fais pas le film pour l'audience. Je fais le film pour créer une œuvre artistique. Ça peut le plaire à quelqu'un, ça peut ne pas le plaire à quelqu'un. Il y a un livre sacré qui s'appelle Bhagavad Gita, hindou, qui dit pense à l'œuvre, ne pense pas aux fruits de l'œuvre. Et chaque fois que tu fais une œuvre, fais-le comme un sacrifice que tu fais vers ton Dieu intérieur. Alors, je faisais le film comme ça. Parfois, sont bien reçus, parfois des personnes se disent que oh, c'est terrible, etc. Je ne cherche pas ça, comment il est reçu le film. Je cherche, s'il y a une personne qui vient me voir et me dit ce film, je ne peux pas l'oublier, il a changé ma vie, avec ces 7 personnes, je suis satisfait, une personne. Et il y a eu plusieurs qui m'ont dit ça. Hein? Donc je pense que j'ai fait quelque chose quand même qui valait la peine de faire.